Purnamidam Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Swaminarayan Bhagwan Jai. Akshar Purushottam Maharaj Jai. Radha Krishna Devani Jai. Siyavar Ramachandra Bhagwan Jai. Umapati Mahadevani Jai. Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharaj Jai. Guru Hari Mahan Swami Maharaj Jai. Pramukh Swami Maharaj Shatabdi Mahotsav Jai. In the divine presence of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, in the equally divine presence of Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharaj, Guru Hari Mahan Swami Maharaj, in the revered presence of saints and all the dignitaries, many of whom I see as personal friends, and all the devotees who have gathered here this evening. The title of my talk is In the Joy of Others. Encapsulated inside this title are two extremes, joy and others. When we talk about joy or happiness, it's always my joy, my happiness. When 20 people are eating ice cream, you don't feel happy when you eat it, you feel happy. So joy is a very personal thing. And inside the equation of our joy, there is no room for others. We live in a world where we find that joy or happiness depends on exclusivity. When everybody has something, then the joy is reduced by default. But when you are the only one who exclusively possesses something, then your joy doubles. So you have two extremes. Joy is very personal, and others is general. But it's not our fault, because we live in a world where we have been conditioned over decades that to be first in a class is important, second and third really don't matter. Even in an Olympic game, if you win the gold, you're everywhere. Despite the fact that silver and the bronze, they do climb the stage, they are nowhere. We only remember the name of the first man who walked the earth, Neil Armstrong. Poor Buzz Aldrin walked 20 minutes after, but nobody remembers. We live in a world where first, best, exclusivity determines how joyous we are or not. But I also want to emphasize it's not just affecting us in general. Some of the best of us who are wedded to public life, who want to serve, who actually idealize and idolize the value of selflessness. But some of the best of us, we know that we value the virtue of selflessness, but privately we worship selfishness. Some of the best of us, they spend their talent, their intelligence, even their beliefs, religious people included. There is some selfish motive in the things that people do that drive us where we go. There's an imaginary story that I came across, and I want to emphasize again, the story is imaginary, but the message is real. There were three friends equally talented, equally intelligent. They all decided after their early schooling to go into management. One went to Harvard School of Management, one to LSE, one to India's IIM. After finishing their studies, they all three somehow decided to be padris. And they all opened up their small church or parish in their corner of the world. After 20 years of serving as a profound and a really sincere padri, a religious person, they decided that, hey, let's find out how each one of us is doing. So like you have friends reunion, students reunion, they decided, let's get together after 20 years at a certain place, a certain time, all of us together. Obviously, the first padri, one was the American who was in Harvard and doing a small church there. One was the British and the other was the Indian. Obviously, the British padri, he arrived exactly on time in his old Austin Morris, chugging along. The American arrived 20 minutes late in his huge limo. And by opening his window, he told to the British padris, hey, why are you so early? Because Americans always feel they're always on time. Either the world is ahead or behind. But he came in his brand new limousine and he went and they met. Then obviously the Indian Standard Time. Because we own the theory of chronology. And we are the only ones who have the widest range, you know. Whole Yuga, Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, Kalyug, it talks about millions and millions of years. So obviously the Indian, he came in his brand new gold glittering Rolls Royce, all three padris. They met for a couple of hours, they shared their old memories, they were so happy amongst themselves, and suddenly they looked at each other and said, look, we are padris and everybody confesses to us. Let's confess to each other how we really made our little wealth. And they're all looking, one with the old Austin Morris, one with a limo, and one with a Rolls. And suddenly the British padri got up. He said, you know, every Sunday I give my sermon in my small church. And then after the sermon, I take my hat out and I pass the hat along. People put money. You know, how much space do I occupy on this earth? A small circle? So I draw a small circle. I put all the money up in the air. That which falls in the circle, I keep. The rest I donate in charity, selflessness. Then the Americans said, okay, I do the same thing Sunday, I collect the money, but we Americans don't believe in small circles, we draw lines. Either you're with us or either you are against us. And so all the money that goes up, that which falls on this side of the line, I keep. That's how I've got the limo. The Indian got up smiling, he's from IIM. He said, look, we always say in our sermons that God is up there watching everything we do. God bestows His grace. He sees everything that happens on this earth. So I put out my hat, collect my money. I don't draw a circle. I don't draw a line. I throw the money. That which God wants, He keeps. The rest comes to me. The story is imaginary, but message is real. Publicly, we value selflessness. Everybody in this hall, most of you are in public life. Publicly, we talk about selflessness. Privately, we worship selfishness. It is here that Pramukh Swami Maharaj has come along. And he gave us a message which is not like a sutra. It is like his Jivan mantra. It is something that he lived all his life. It's so easy for a thinker, a poet, or somebody to coin a beautiful slogan where he has nothing to do with it. But when something comes out from your entire life, something in the joy of others lies our own. બીજાના સુખમાં આપણું સુખ છે, બીજાના ભલામાં આપણું ભલું છે, અને બીજાના ઉત્કર્ષમાં આપણો ઉત્કર્ષ છે. In the joy of others lies our own. In the good of others lies our own, and in the progress of others lies our own. When Swami Shri gave us this, I remember when once I was talking about this sutra, a lot of people from the audience came up to me and said, Swamiji, it sounds very good. And I also want to confess to you, like I talked about earlier, That, many of us would have a beautiful picture of the moon in our room. Beautiful picture of the moon. It's so romantic, so lovely. It creates an environment. But getting to the moon is hostile. You can't survive. So this sutra in the joy of others is so romantic, so nice, feels so good. But practically, it's a challenge. So they told me, because they were Indians, they said, Swamiji, I know to bring joy to my family member, I rented my flat out in India to them. Now it's brought so much misery to me because they don't give it back. In the joy of others does not lie my joy. I can give you endless examples of doctors who have come crying to us. He said, Swami, there was this patient, I tried so hard. I worked my brains out and I made him live. But he got out and sued me. I gave him his life, he took mine. In the joy of others does not lie our own joy. Once we were in Bhuj working, doing seva during the earthquake. All of you know that BAPS, under the guidance of Pramukh Swami, reached out to 409 villages. At one time, the government started taking statistics from our system. BAPS built over 4,500 homes for the homeless after Bhuj. Free meals were given to almost 2 million people. And Pramukh Swami, do you know what he said? It's not a refugee camp. We must bring smiles to the people, the joy. So there should not be the same food menu every day. Don't do the easy stuff. Keep changing the menu. They should feel they are coming to somebody's marriage, even in a refugee camp. The quality of providing joy, even when you serve, not doing it didactically, not doing it in a way of their one-upmanship. No. We love bringing those smiles. But I remember once we were going through on the streets of Bhuj, there was an accident. Suddenly I asked my driver, I said, you please stop down. There's an accident. Somebody's bleeding. Please help. He said, no, Swamiji, we can't stop. I said, why? I said, help in the joy of others. You should go and help. He did. The guy who was in the accident survived. He's free. But the guy who helped as a witness, he's still visiting the police station and courts just for witness. So he tells me, we want to help, but we don't because we feel it's not appropriate, or whether our help will bring us joy or not. That's our situation. But Pramukh Swami has said, and not only said, he has given us the guidance that nevertheless, these incidents are just aberrations. Our argument would be, Swami, when the whole world is bad, why should I be the only one who should be good? When everybody skips red light, why should I be the only one who stops? Now my question to each one of you present here would be, if the whole world is blind and you are the only one with eyes, should you poke out your eyes or should you help the blind see? If the whole world swears you are the only one with decent language, should you reteach them decency or should you start swearing as well? If the whole world is legless, you are the only one with feet, should you cut your own feet off or should you walk for them? And finally, if the whole world dies and you are the only one alive, should you also join the world or should you live and lift your head up? So what? There may be stray incidents where you find people cheat, betray, there is difficulty, there is systems that don't go. Still, Pramukh Swami Maharaj has asked us that in the joy of others lies our own. When we understand this, we will come to a conclusion that there is higher meaning, higher purpose in life as a human being. Individually, selfishly, we cannot survive. What are the chances of man surviving in the environment that we live in as an individual? Go to the jungle, can you survive a day? I'll put you in a desert, you may be the king. Can you survive a day? Even a small storm or a wind or suddenly getting cold, can we survive? Technically, naturally, we are perhaps the weakest species. Even a cat and a dog and a cow can remain in rain throughout the night without catching a sneeze. And apade? Lemsip. I am telling you, physically and biologically, we are perhaps the weakest species on this earth, but because we are connected, cooperation, because we share, because we reach out to each other, cooperation and compassion and reaching out makes us the strongest species on this earth. As individual, we are weak. Collectively, we are a race to reckon with. So others is a very important part for our joy, for our progress, for our survival. When I was a kid studying back in Leicester, I remember there was a small poem that taught us, and the poem started off with, each one of us are secretly searching for strength, the strongest, the best, secretly. And the poem started with, it was a very simple poem, very interesting, that what is the strongest thing in life? The author says steel. Then he says, but fire can melt it. Okay, fire is the strongest. Water can quench it. Fine, water is the strongest. The sun can evaporate the water. Fine. Everybody knows the sun there sitting in the sky is the strongest, most powerful. He said, what? The sun is the strongest. He said, but the clouds can cover the sun. It's all right, fine, the thin, weak clouds, they are stronger than the sun. They can cover the sun. He said, when the wind blows, the clouds fritter away like powder. Okay, the wind is strongest. But man can keep out the wind by shutting his window. Creativity. So he says, man is the strongest thing on this earth. He said, but have you seen the toughest, the strongest, the biggest man when he's fearful? કોઈ કે ઇન્ડિયાના ઘરમાં આપણી આજુબાજુ કોઈ ઇન્કમ ટેક્સ ઓફિસર ફરે છે? અહીંયા ધડકારો છે. એ તો ખાલી પૂછવા આવતો કે બાજુવાળો કોણ છે એમ. Still, I'm trying to tell you, fear. Fear of losing somebody that's close to you. Fear of an illness. Fear of your children failing an exam. Fear of a failed marriage. Fear of losing your dignity or position or your prestige. So many fears affect us. He says fear is the strongest thing in the world. He said, but even fears are forgotten when you go to sleep. So they say sleep is the strongest. When you are really possessed by sleep, you just can't keep your eyelids open. They weigh like tons. So he says sleep is the strongest thing in the world. Then he corrects himself and says, even after sleep, 6 hours, a man wakes up again. From death, he does not wake up. So death is the strongest thing in life. Then he corrects himself again, that long after a person has died, he continues to live by the good deeds he has done. So a good deed is the strongest thing in the world. Years after Mahatma Gandhi, he is still alive by the good deeds. Years after Nelson Mandela, they're still alive by the good deeds. When I recounted this entire story to Pramukh Swami Maharaj, see how Pramukh Swami corrected it further. I said, Baba, this is this. And then Swami smiled, he said, long before a person can do a good deed, a good thought inspires him to do a good deed. So a good thought is the strongest thing in the world. Welcome here to share the good ideas and good thoughts this evening at the temple today. It is also important that we realize that a good deed performed for others. Many people choose to perform good deeds for themselves. We are so happy. Being good is not good enough. Being good for someone and something is important. If I ask you, there are so many people who are well versed with medicine as well. If I ask you, is drinking water important for our lives or not? Of course. If you are dehydrated in a day, all your system and chemicals and hormones would be haywire. So water is very important. How many glasses of water should we drink, Mayank bhai? 8, 10? 2 liters, he's very safe. Your glass size could differ, but he says 2 liters, fine, okay. So if I ask VH, how many glasses do you drink in a day? 8. They're important, right? It's an important thing. Unless you stop drinking, you will never realize how important water is. We take it for granted. So if I ask you, how many glasses have you drunk during your life? See, all of you are laughing. It's perhaps the most important thing in a day for your survival for the next day, and we don't even count the glasses. We don't even remember, at this time I took one glass, at this time I took... You don't even remember yesterday, you don't even remember this morning. But if you are passing, and somewhere in the streets you find somebody's just struggling and dying without a water, and you get down from your car, and you give your bottle of water, a glass of water to that dying person, I don't think you are going to forget that glass. The glasses that you drink help you live, but one glass that made somebody else live, you will never forget in your life. That's why Pramukh Swami has said, in the joy of others, in the good of others lies our own. It outlives you and me. Most of the activities and achievements we do, they die and pass away with us. Do something that outlives you. That's what Swamiji has expressed to us. And that's what President Kalam, our former most loved president, Dr. APJ Kalam, discovered in Pramukh Swami. As a scientist, he had met almost the top scientists of the world. As a great human being, he had met most social leaders. As the President of India, he met heads of state around the world. As a profound Muslim, he had also met so many spiritual leaders of different faiths and different religions and sampradayas. But from all of them, he said one thing, that I've learned a secret from Pramukh Swami. Once he was coming down in Ahmedabad from meeting Pramukh Swami, and he was coming down in a lift. Some of the sadhus, we asked him that, sir, you are old, but you're so energetic. Everything you do is lively. You know, once we start aging and once we suddenly become a little, and we actually have the excuse of age in slowing down. Pramukh Swami never slowed down, I want to tell you. Of the 1,200 temples he's built, 1,100 he built after his first heart attack. And around that much he built after his bypass surgery. If somebody has had a quintuple bypass surgery, he would slow down. Pramukh Swami never slowed down, because he was living for others, serving others. To give you an entirety in a compound system, I want to ask you, many of you are so well versed in your own field and in the history. CB, put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, do you know anyone on this earth now who has traveled to 17,000 villages and cities? You might find a person from a history who has traveled to 17,000 villages and cities as a tourist or as a naturalist. But not as a tourist, but to help those villages, number one. Add on to that, the same guy you have found who might have traveled 17,000 villages and cities, but has he or she visited 250,000 homes? Not for staying, not for social relationship, but to uplift those homes and the people of those homes. 250,000 homes over and above 17,000 villages, not jet set, from airport to airport. Now add one more figure. This will mind boggle you. The same person who has visited 17,000 and 250,000 homes, has he or she written 750,000 letters? You know, we can't even forward so many messages. 750,000 letters personally. For whom? For the joy of others. And lastly, even if we find a person on the history books of humanity, the last question, when Pramukh Swami told us, he's never ever had a thought of hurting or hating anyone in his life. Bring me one person on this earth who has millions of thoughts day in and day out, and you have never had a thought of hurting or hating anyone. This is the grandness and greatness of Pramukh Swami Maharaj. And that's why when he says in the joy of others, he spent his entire life for the joy of others. Never once a thought crossed on him for me, me, me. No, it was just you, you, you. That's why there is power in whatever he said. And I want to emphasize with history as well, in the joy of others lies our own. In any time in life, if you have been kind, if you have tried to bring a smile to somebody, it returns in multifold. The incident has almost become a legend. It's around 1870s in America, when one little boy, he didn't have enough money to pay his own fees, so he started doing errands from home to home. When that little boy went from home to home doing small jobs and getting some money to pay for his fees, he came for 3-4 days, he didn't get any money, he could not even get food, he was starving. He decided the next house that I will bang my hand on, I'll beg for some food because I was so starving. But the next house he knocked on, a very young, beautiful girl opened the door. He was smitten by her attractive looks, so he could not have the courage to ask somebody as if he's a beggar. And he just asked that girl, he said, is there anything I can do in your home so you can give me some wages? I would just like to work. And she looked at him and she said, you know, you look starved. He said, no, I'm not. Who would say? He said, anyway, do you want anything to drink? Just as a courtesy, he was damn hungry. But he said, I'll take a glass of water. The girl went back home and she came up with a glass of milk. And when she gave that glass of milk, he drank it ravenously. He was hungry and also thanking God in one way or the other. He drank it ravenously and suddenly, as with great dignity, he said, how much would that cost? He had no money. But still, you know, the equations, he didn't want to look bad before an attractive girl. He says, how much would that cost? The girl was not only just attractive, she was well cultured. She said, my mother has taught me never get paid for kindness. So thank you. She closed the door. It all finished. Almost 25, 30 years later, the same girl became a woman. She got married. This was in a place near Boston. And she contracted a disease which was almost terminal and nobody had any remedy for it. And she was specially taken to Boston. In the Boston hospitals, Dr. Howard Kelly, he came on a special case because, you know, such a special case which is like, you know, unfathomable. So many realized she was the same girl who had given him as a boy a glass of milk. Because he had gone further to study and become a doctor, a very famous doctor in Boston. And he treated her for a month and a half. And actually, determinedly, he cured her. The girl and the woman was so scared. She was from a small village. She did not know what the bills would be. It's a big hospital, a big doctor. She was happy she was alive, but she was scared of the bill. She fearfully asked the doctor that how much would that cost? Dr. Howard Kelly, the founder of Johns Hopkins Medical Institute and Hospital, no ordinary person, he wrote on a page saying, paid in full with a glass of milk. Don't forget to bring a smile to even the smallest people you meet by offering them something. Go home and make your own family happy. Don't squirm. When you have an opportunity, do not allow a single opportunity to do good, to bring happiness and a smile to people around you. Ultimately, goodness returns. Kalam said, I have learned from Pramukh Swami, wherever he goes, he only says and thinks, what can I give? What can I give? What can I give? What can I give to the children? A smile to make them happy? Fine. To the elderly, a hand? Happy? Fine. To the people who work under you, why do you have to treat them like a boss? Even when you come to India, as if when you sit in a rickshaw, you own the rickshaw, but also you own the rickshawala. You're always, griping at him. Why? He has a family, he has a home, he has to go back somewhere. Be kind. If you bring a smile to somebody, that joy will come back to you multifold. But if you can't give, at least forgive. Somebody may not have the heart to give, but you can forgive. I'll remind you of 14th December 2014. A very great man passed away from this earth, Nelson Mandela. And you know something? Just to give him farewell, a stadium had to be hired. Actually, the whole of South Africa was giving him a farewell. A stadium had to be hired. Do you know why? More than 100 heads of states, presidents, prime ministers, chiefs came willingly without invitation. More than 90 heads of international organizations like WHO, United Nations, and so came. Most of them he had never met personally. It wasn't that he praised their countries, it wasn't that he worked with their organizations. Why? I always thought, why so many people around the world came to pay tribute and farewell to a person whom they had not met? But I remember, you all know Nelson Mandela. As a young child, he struggled to study. He came from a tribal person. As a youth, he was hunted for standing up for freedom. Then he was conspired against and put into jail for a few years, and again, conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy. He was in jail for 27 years. Not for his own fault. We always complain and have reasons to be unhappy by saying, why me? This is Nelson Mandela. He was in jail for 27 years. We have visited that place like a pilgrim place. It's a small place, a cell in Robben Island, when Mandela was jailed for 27 years. He could not even stretch his feet. But the climax is, the man behind the conspiracy of jailing Nelson Mandela was John Foster, a thinker, a designer who conspired, who made sure Mandela would remain in jail. And as God would have it, John Foster became the Prime Minister of South Africa. Now you have a reason to go against God and said that he's bad, but why have you given him? When John Foster became the PM of South Africa, one of his goals, he joked with the media people, was hang Mandela. Here he is in 27 years in jail. The Prime Minister of the country is the guy who conspired against him. His mission is to hang Mandela, hang Mandela, hang Mandela. Every other day he would read in the papers, hang Mandela, hang Mandela. As God would have it, he tried to pass a bill, but the bill never passed. John Foster came down. It so came, the white supremacist regime went away. In the 1990s, Mandela, he was so naive. When the jailer came to him and said, Mr. Mandela, you are free from tomorrow because we have just received a fax. Mandela asked, what is a fax? 27 years is a big time. Big time. But as he was leaving Robben Island, the whole world media gathered around Mandela and said, the first question they asked, because they knew John Foster was the gun who conspired. He made sure he was in jail. He was the prime minister. He hated Mandela. When the world media asked him, Mr. Mandela, what do you think of John Foster? He said, he's a decent man. And Mandela left. How many prejudices we hold in our heart, which hurt us but doesn't affect the people. Mandela said, if I had not left my bitterness back in jail, when I left the jail, I would still be in jail. We are captives of our own biases and hurts and hates. Pramukh Swami has shown us the way to transcend these hates and hurts and divisions that divide our life and go to a different level of life. So if you can't give, at least forgive. Pramukh Swami Maharaj, even after Akshardham was attacked, he took the higher morals ground for praying for peace, for being responsible, going beyond and transcending the event to promote peace in the lives of the people. So this was his life from which his sutra has come out. And lastly, even if you can't give, even if you can't forgive, believe. There is goodness in goodness, there is joy in joy. Go forth. Still, even if you are the worst of enemies, go back in your home and forgive. Try and give something back to society. You will become a happier human being, because nothing in this world will leave you. When you go out and give happiness to others, your happiness will arrive on its own. Once there was a small party, a party in such a hall. Everybody who entered that party was given a red balloon. Same length string, a red balloon. Everybody was asked to put their names on. So everybody wrote their names. And once they came into the hall, they were asked to release the balloons. Now, nobody knew where their balloon was. Then they were asked to move around in the hall, and suddenly the announcer announced, he said, okay, now all of you have about 10 minutes to find your own balloon. Now what would happen? There was chaos. People were jumping, lifting, and trying to go, this is not my balloon, this is not my balloon. Nobody could find, because from bottom, they could just see red balloons with a string. Where the name was, nobody knew. After half an hour of fighting, infighting, struggling, and hating, and hurting, hardly anybody found their balloon. But when the announcement and the wise man got up and said, excuse me, wherever you are, raise your hand, hold the string and pull down that balloon. Whoever's name is on that balloon, go and give that balloon to him or her. Somebody will come and give your balloon to you. When you go out and give happiness to someone else, God has already arranged for someone to come and give your happiness to you. That's why in the joy of others lies our own, in the good of others lies our own, and in the progress of others lies our own. Thank you very much.